We're warming up.
Okay, warming up.
The two main things to get into law school is your LSAT and your GPA. In the end, you'll get in where you're meant to go. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany and we are in the Life as a Lawyer series. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about how to get into law school. So today I'm here with my friend Susan.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Aquina and I'm an immigration attorney in New York City. I'm really thrilled that you can join us for this video with my awesome friend Brittany. If you haven't already, please subscribe and comment below. My friend Brittany is an amazing person and we're really glad you can join us today.
I think our first topic is going to be all about undergraduate studies. So a lot of people ask, do I need to study a certain subject in school? Is there a law major? I studied political science and I did that because I think someone told me that people who go to law school usually study political science, so I just did that. Honestly, I don't think it really matters that much what you major in. Usually undergrads don't have specific law majors, so you kind of just do whatever interests you, or for some people, if they are going to go into like patent law or IP, sometimes it helps to have like an engineering or science background. But for most people, I think you can study like philosophy or political science or writing or really anything. What did you study in undergrad?
I studied government/international relations and also Spanish. So for me, my undergraduate, because I went to a liberal arts college, there was a heavy focus on reading and writing, and I think that will really prepare you to read and write a lot because there's a lot of reading and writing to do in law school. Something I've noticed during law school was that a lot of this descriptive, flowy writing that I did in liberal arts college didn't really translate as well to the law school exams, because in law school it's pretty formulaic and it's very straightforward. You have the situation and you need to apply the specific rule or law to that situation. And so I've noticed that friends of mine who may have studied engineering or science or logic, they seem to have more of that formulaic background and understanding, and so many of them did very well in law school.
Yeah, that's good to know because I feel like what I learned in undergrad didn't transfer at all to what I did in law school, so it's very different. I think another thing that a lot of people ask or think about when they're applying to law school, because it's very similar to applying to college, is do I need to do extracurriculars or outside activities or work experience? And I know for myself, I did like one internship and I worked at basically like a superior court for the summer because I thought it would be good on my resume. But I think in the end, it's really what you're interested in. And so if you want to learn more about a certain type, excuse the sirens.
We're in Brooklyn.
This is New York right here.
New York.
Anyway, so if you want to learn more about a certain type of law or you're interested in something, it'd be good to go and experience those things, because then you can talk about them in essays or get letters of recommendation through those avenues, or just like see if that's what you like to do. So I think it's good to get exposure and experience, but I don't think you have to like kill yourself over like your extracurricular activities. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's very interesting what Brittany shared because our experiences were also different. I think Brittany went straight to law school right after undergrad, and for myself, I was an older student. I went to law school 4 years after I graduated from college, and so I did teaching. I was in advertising. I actually quit my advertising job before I decided to apply and go to law school. And during that interim, I also interned at several nonprofits doing immigration work that I was interested in, and also teach the LSAT. Through all these experiences, while they might not directly impact your acceptance into getting into the law schools, I think they are valuable when it comes to interviewing when you are in law school for various positions. So for example, during your first year or second year of law school, when you meet with your interviewer, if you have these, all these experiences, I think you have really interesting and strong talking points to talk about.
So I think we're on the same page where really the two main things to get into law school is your LSAT and your GPA. Like, I know a lot of schools try to say they're holistic and that they take other things into consideration, but I think what it boils down to is if you don't get the score, or the LSAT score or the GPA that is like at least the median or above on the acceptance stats through their website, then you're probably not going to get into that school. I think for the LSAT at least, if you want to get to like a tier 1 school, we would say probably around 165 or so would be like a good score to get.
So yes, I taught the LSAT for Kaplan. The test itself, it's a test of your ability to identify patterns in the test. Also, it tests your ability to spot issues and also your endurance, because it's a very long exam. And so at Kaplan, when I taught, and this was pretty much 10 years ago, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I applied to law school almost a decade ago. And yeah, so for the LSAT exam, you have your reading comprehension, you have your, I think, various sentence structures that you have to pick out, and then the logic games. And so a key thing is to focus on where your strengths are, make sure you really excel at that, and then also try to work on areas where you think you may need greater improvement.
Yeah, and I think you were saying before that it's important to take a lot of practice tests.
Yes, so because the LSAT matters so much, and especially if you want to get into one of those top law schools, each point on the LSAT will really matter and affect your acceptance. I would encourage you to review and also take as many tests as you can. A lot of people take lots of tests, but then they may not take time to review. So I think it's reviewing. It's a very tedious and onerous thing to do, to like look back on why you got it wrong, really study it, see why you picked the wrong answer, and really learn from that, and then taking that experience and applying it when you take a new exam. So it's very tedious, but something to know is that law school will be even more tedious. So if you can do this up front, you'll be better set when you go to law school.
Yeah. But I think one thing to just state is that what you get on the LSAT is not going to translate to how well you do in law school, because I think there's a lot of people who did really well on the LSAT and they assume that they'll just like breeze through law school, but it's just totally different.
Yeah, I can second that opinion. Just because you score well on the LSATs, it's only a test that lasts for, I can't remember, like 4 hours or something.
Yeah.
Whereas law school, it's a whole semester. And so for me, the LSAT tests your ability to read well and to comprehend well, and also to make out all the patterns. Whereas in law school, it's more of a marathon. You need to know the subject matter. You need to know what the situation is and how to apply the specific law in each subject category to that situation. So it's a very different test.
Yeah, so just be sure to study for it. And I think like for both of us, we took classes, and I would say that's like my number one tip, is because a lot of people think they can study on their own, but they're not as disciplined, or they just get distracted, or it just helps to have someone else guiding you through the test and teaching you how to approach it or strategies. So I would definitely suggest like taking some sort of class. And for me, I only took it once because I was pretty lazy. I think I just like took it once and I was like, it was good enough. But I know a lot of people take it more than once, and for me, I took it my junior year. That way I just wanted to know like what my stats were going into applying to schools, so I just wanted to get it all over with before senior year started. But I guess you took yours after because you worked for a few years. But yeah, I mean, I think the timing is really up to you, and just I think just practicing and preparing for it.
Yeah, I think the LSATs, it's probably this way still, but they only offer it, like 4 times a year.
I think
so it is very limited, and basically you only have like 2 times to take it if you're planning to apply for the following year. I would recommend just focusing as much as you can and preparing well for the test. I wouldn't recommend that you take it multiple times. So for myself, I took it the first time, but then when I felt like I wasn't performing the way that I thought I would, I canceled my score the next day. It's better to just cancel your score than to get a low score. And so that's what I did, and then the second time I took it, and that was that. Having a lower score will not help you, and so if you know, for example, like if I had a feeling like, I'm not getting, over 170, and I don't feel that good about my performance, it's better to cancel that.
Yeah. I guess like after your LSAT and your GPA, the next thing to do is obviously just to apply to the school, and each school has their own application. I think when I was applying, there's this thing called LSAC. Did you do that too? Yeah. So I think you can like apply to multiple schools through that system, but usually you have like an essay, you have an application, letters of recommendation. So I don't know how you prepared for that.
Yeah, there's a lot to gather, and so I think it's good to have a set schedule or like a timeline that you have for yourself, like to finish a certain thing with a set deadline. So I remember the personal essay took me a long time to write, because I had to really think about ways that I can distinguish myself from everybody else. And so, I ultimately wrote about my experience living abroad in Argentina and participating in a choir. I mean, it wasn't really doesn't sound that related to law, but somehow I was able to spin it and make it related to the law. For letters of recommendation, I got a letter from my college professor. I had a small class with him. I knew that he knew me very well, and the other person I had originally asked to write my letter was a director of my advertising agency, because I was also working in advertising. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to write the letter ultimately for me because he was upset that I quit my advertising job and decided to go to law school. So I had to scramble and get another person to write the letter. I ended up getting a copywriter at the agency to write the letter. So things that I would recommend you consider is 1, find someone who knows you well, 2, and can speak great things about you. 3, make sure that they are also a strong writer, because you want someone who can write persuasively and who can really explain who you are as a person to the law school. And to help my recommenders, I actually prepared an outline for them, and I also prepared specific examples of how I really shined. Both of them wrote great letters for me.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're very organized, because I don't think I was like that. So I think next is really to decide where you want to apply. I think a good rule of thumb, similar to how you apply to college, is to apply to safety schools, reach schools, and then just schools that you think you'll probably get into. For me, I'm a little too ambitious. I think I applied to too many reach schools, because I think out of the 13 that I applied to, I only got into like 4, and 2 were like super safety schools I probably wouldn't have gone to anyway. And then I got waitlisted at 2, which in the end, that's why I chose Chapman, was because the other school that I was considering, it was Southwestern, and Chapman was higher ranked at that rate, so I was like, well, I might as well go to the higher ranked school. Plus I wanted to be in Southern California, so I think just be realistic with where you apply. If you're not getting the LSAT or GPA that school has, then you're most likely not going to get in. So you can always try, but I think just be realistic with your expectations. Another question that people have asked is, does it matter what state you go to law school in? And I think the answer for both of us is yes, because really it's where you make your connections. It's, for me, also where each state has a different bar exam. And for California, for example, where I went, we had specific classes that were geared towards California bar exam subjects. So I think it's important to sort of go to school that is geared towards that and that can help you succeed, because obviously if you don't pass the bar exam, you can't become a lawyer. So I think that's really important. And I knew I wanted to practice and be in California, so that's why I applied to schools in California.
But life throws you many different wrenches, right?
That's true.
Where are you now? New
It's
York.
true, now I am in New York.
Yeah. But stay tuned for another series about that.
How to transfer.
So for myself, I also knew where I wanted to practice. My family is from New York, so I knew I wanted to stay local. And so I only applied to schools in New York City, and schools that were within like no farther than 4 hours driving. So I applied to Cornell, UPenn, Columbia, NYU, Fordham, Brooklyn Law School, and Cardozo Law School. So those are the schools I applied to. I got into 3 of them, and I was waitlisted at basically everything else, and then I was rejected from NYU pretty quickly. Something I would recommend is that if you know that your score on the LSAT and the GPA is very close to a school that you are really interested in getting into, it can't hurt to apply early decision, because that really shows the school your interest, and it may maybe slightly give you an extra edge. That's what I had done for UPenn. I applied early decision, but one thing to remember about early decision is that if you do apply there and they accept you, that means you have to withdraw your applications from all the other schools. In my situation, I got waitlisted at UPenn, and I was waitlisted for a long time until I was not accepted. But you know, it's something worth trying if there's a school that you really wanted to get into.
Yeah, so you never know what will happen. I think in the end, you'll get in where you're meant to go.
And I met my husband in law school.
Oh yeah.
But he did not go to my law school.
Actually, that's true. If I hadn't, because originally I wanted to go to USD, University of San Diego, because I wanted to stay in San Diego, but I didn't get in as well, and so I ended up going to Chapman. And I also wouldn't have met my husband if I didn't move to Irvine, so.
Wow. So everything happens for a reason. Yeah. So eventually I chose Fordham University. I decided to go to Fordham because of its strong reputation, especially in New York City. I was thinking of doing corporate law, and so I knew that Fordham Law has a really strong alumni network, has a strong reputation, and so I went to Fordham, and I didn't go to some other schools that gave me a full ride.
Yeah, I think scholarships are like one thing to definitely take into consideration, especially if you're deciding between two schools that are maybe similarly ranked or in similar locations. Like if one gives you money, I would say probably go to that one, because law school debt is no joke, and I know I've talked about that many times, but yeah, so it's definitely helpful if they give you scholarships or financial aid. And I think this goes into the next question, which is, does it matter if you go to a tier 1 or a tier 2 school? And I think Susan can talk about this.
Yeah, I think it really depends, on what you want to do. If you're someone who has their heart set on big law, which means one of the top law firms in New York City or nationally, you want to go to a tier 1 school. Actually, you probably want to go into one of the top 20 schools, or even, Fordham. It's not in the top 20, but it's basically number 3 in New York City. So, unless you are in those schools, it is very hard to get your foot in the door. And even depends on the area that you want to practice. In New York City, even certain nonprofits can be very competitive to enter or even to get internships. So my recommendation is to get into the highest ranked school you can. The area where you may not need to, necessarily go into a top tier law school is if, for example, you are very entrepreneurial and you think, hey, I don't really want to really work for anyone. I want to open up my own law firm. I want to do this for myself. And if that's the case, then yeah, I would, it's okay if you don't necessarily go into the best law school or the highest ranked law school, because then you're opening up your own shop and you don't have to try to get your foot in the door because you're going to be the owner.
That's true. I think for Chapman, because we're like barely even ranked, I don't even know what we are. It's probably like super low, but I think people in that area, like the immediate area of Orange County, know about Chapman, but anyone beyond that probably don't know about that school. And I remember when I was trying to move here, I was talking to some lawyers about how to get jobs, and they said, well, it's going to be difficult because no one knows what Chapman is. They're going to say, well, what law school is this? We don't know about it. We don't know if it's a good school, if it's prestigious or not. So I think it does matter depending on, like Susan said, what kind of job you want, if you want to work for a big law firm. For me, I didn't really have that high of aspirations. I just wanted to work really anywhere, and it didn't really matter. I think you'll definitely get a job. I don't think there's a doubt about you getting a job. I think it's just where, and it depends how prestigious of a job you want. So I think in the end, it really depends on what kind of job you want and where you see yourself after law school.
I'm going to be a Debbie Downer, and I'm going to say sometimes, like in the New York market, it is very competitive. So unfortunately, I do know people who were not able to get jobs or legal jobs after law school, and so they generally transitioned into finance or some other fields. But I think what Brittany and I shared earlier is really true. If you as she said, the regional school, if you know where you want to practice law, then we do recommend going to a law school in that area, because, for example, you said Chapman is very well known in Southern California, in that area, and similarly Fordham is very well known in New York City. I don't know if everyone knows Fordham, like out in California. You've probably never heard of Fordham.
No, I didn't. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I think that's all the tips for now. I think it really comes down to studying for your LSAT, getting your grades up, and figuring out where you want to practice, eventually where you want to take the bar exam, and what schools you want to go into, really looking at what those schools are looking for, and being realistic about what schools you actually apply to. If you have any questions, don't forget to comment below, and we'll try to answer them, me or Susan. And also you can follow me on Instagram and keep watching for other videos in this series. The next one will be about how law school is, how to study for it, how to prepare for it, because it is like a whole another beast, and you don't really know what you're getting yourself into sometimes.
And I think you're already ahead of the game by just even watching this video. Like for myself, I didn't watch any videos, and I'm so glad that you're interested in learning more. And so Brittany is so awesome that she's sharing about her experience, and yeah, you're already ahead of the game. And at the end of the day, just remember to breathe, and it's all going to be okay. And if you have any additional questions, follow me on susan.akina, or you can follow me at Speaking of Plants. It's my plants only Instagram. This is a Palea. It's like a Instagram baby. This is super hot and trending on Instagram.
Oh, look at those leaves. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.